Hi, this is Carrie Brownstein.
This is DJ Premier.
This is Darren Aronofsky.
You got the RZA right here.
Rose McGowan.
Radiohead.
Aisha Tyler.
Tribe Called Quest. Fred Armisen.
Fritz Paul.
Javier Munoz. Seth Meyers.
Frankie Cosmos.
Flying Lotus.
Hi, we're Chaim, and you're listening to the Talkhouse Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Talkhouse Podcast. I'm Josh Modell. On this week's episode, we've got a legend of 90s era punk in deep conversation with a songwriter you might be hearing of for the first time. It's Kathleen Hanna and Jim Andralis. Now, Hanna, of course, was a founding member of Bikini Kill, the band credited with starting the riot grrrl movement and inspiring an incredible number of young women to pick up guitars and claim their place in the rock universe. After Bikini Kill's initial split, Hanna went on to perform in both the Julie Ruin and Tigre, though recent years have found her spitting fire with Bikini Kill yet again. They're actually on tour right now through September. Hanna also released an excellent memoir this year called Rebel Girl, My Life as a Feminist Punk, which is absolutely worth a read or an audiobook listen. Hanna reads it herself and it's awesome. Now, Hanna's people approached us about having her chat with songwriter Jim Andralis because, as you'll hear in this chat, she might be his biggest fan. Andralis is a New Yorker whose day job is as a trauma-focused psychotherapist, but who's been writing songs for the past 20 or so years. Considering Hanna's fandom, it might surprise you to learn that Andralis doesn't come out of the punk tradition at all. He's a songwriter in the classic sense, meaning it's tough to pin him into a genre box. Kathleen tries a little bit here, but doesn't come to any real conclusions. Andralis recently released his fifth album, Ghosts. Check out a little bit of a song they chat about toward the end of this episode. It's called Carnival.
I came along too late to really know you. We laughed it off, but we were terrified. I might be just your kind, but I can't show you. I can't even come to say goodbye.
Hanna and Andralis jump right into their chat here, and you can tell they're old friends. As you'll hear at the top, Hanna and her band were recently honored by Olympia, Washington with Bikini Kill Day, celebrating a lifetime of achievements. After that, Hanna gets straight to picking Andralis' brain about his lyrics and his songwriting. She interprets one song in particular that turns out to be not quite right, but also kind of right. You'll see. Enjoy.
Hi. Happy Bikini Kill Day. Belated.
Oh my God, the mayor was so hot.
Really?
Yeah, he was really cute.
How was it?
I mean, it was pretty moving. Like, I didn't realize it was going to be so moving. Also, so my friend who passed of heroin overdose, as can be expected, his mom came and gave me his ashes to take on tour. And so I talked about him and like sort of our acceptance speech or whatever. So there's just a lot happened yesterday.
It sounds so beautiful.
But yeah, the mayor was super cute. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm older than the mayor. You know what I mean? It's like when you realize you're older than your doctor and then you're like, I'm older than the mayor. Like I was a punk in this town and now I'm like older than the fucking mayor. Anyways, let's get on to the interview portion of our day. I just got off the bus. I rode in to the hotel at 11:30 a.m. having my coffee. I've been crying all morning listening to your music.
Oh, perfect. Success.
I'm going to start because some people might not know who you are. So I'm going to start with like Jim Andralis, who are you question? Like,
okay.
First of all, I know you're a New Yorker because all of your songs, because New York is basically a character in the film that is Jim Andralis. No, but you have so many songs that reference New York. So I think people listening, the second that they even look at the song titles on any of your records are going to be like, and one of your most popular songs is Don't Blame New York. So you're a New Yorker, but where did you start out? Where was little Jimmy born?
I was born in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and I lived there till I was like 20, 21. And I went to school really nearby. My family was like super, still is, super tight. So for me, the idea of like leaving felt like the scariest thing in the world. But as a person who happens to be a homosexual, I needed to leave. Like I needed to get out of there so that I could live, so that I could stay alive. So I ended up going to Italy for a couple of years, thinking that I could maybe start to be a gay person there. But then it's like I made friends and I was like, well, if they know. So it was this super like tortured existence until I moved to New York and sort of could begin to imagine being me, like being that this city could sort of be my home. And it wasn't until a few years after that I began to imagine that I could sing. And years after that, well, it was like singing, then playing the accordion, then being in a band, and then writing my own stuff. So that was sort of the trajectory of those things. But like all of that felt like finally being able to like not only be myself, but really connect with other people that I love, you know, and that could love the full spectrum of me.
Yeah. So what were you listening to back in Bethlehem? Baby Jesus.
I was first and foremost, I listened to Jesus.
Because you're born in Bethlehem.
Yeah. It is very Christmas City. Have you ever been there?
I mean, briefly.
Okay. Yeah. No, I was listening to Kate Bush, Melanie, Stevie Nicks. I used to wear Stevie Nicks buttons on my jean jacket. On my jean jacket. When I first started high school, I was like, they're going to think I am so cool because I'm going to wear a jean jacket with Stevie Nicks buttons on them. Oh, and I would like write fan letters to Anna Nancy Wilson and then like show them to girls that I wanted to ask out. It wasn't good.
Barracuda.
Yeah. Yep, that was me. That was my tag.
That's pretty cute.
Yeah, it was cute. Oh, and Tom Petty, you know. We've had our conversations about Tom Petty.
Well, I used to think Kathleen? Tom Petty and Stevie Nicks were brother and sister. And I thought this because of the Tea for the Tillerman record, Cat Stevens. There's two kids. Yeah. Like, I think the old wise Tea for the Tillerman guy is like having tea at a table. And then the two kids are in a tree or something. And they're blonde. I just remember being a kid and like staring at album covers for hours, just like thinking that every detail had some sort of like secret message in it, you know, because we didn't have like the internet. So it wasn't like Taylor Swift could like, you know, write some weird Instagram thing and we'd be trying to decipher it. It's like, I had to look at Cat Stevens' album and be like, come up with this crazy stuff. Like, oh yeah, I think that what this means is that Tom Petty and Stevie Nicks are brother and sister. And they're Cat Stevens' children. Because I thought as a kid growing up in the suburbs that all musicians were related physically. I have no idea how I came up with this. I thought they were physically related to each other because that's the only way you could possibly be that talented, was to be sort of like in this like musical royalty life. And so that song, Stop Dragging My Heart Around, came out and I was like, yeah, they're total brother and sister. And that's why they're duetting.
How else could they sound that good?
I don't give a shit what kind of genre your music is in, because to me, it's country music. Like, even though you have songs that sound more country, like they could be on country radio or something. I mean, alternative universe country.
Yeah.
Like the universe I live in my head, country radio, the country radio that's always playing in my head. To me, it's country music. And then I realized that it was written down on like Spotify and stuff as folk. And I was like, you know what this is? It's like, I don't like the whole new folk, but I feel like it's modern day folk music about New York. Like,
ooh, who is new folk? Like, who would be an artist?
I mean, I think that was something they were calling like Kimya Dawson a few years back. And then like Devinder Bernhardt in the early 2000s. But I didn't really understand that person's music at all. But no, I do feel like the thing that's so interesting is that like, your songs are just like kind of like classic songs. Like I couldn't put it in a genre because I was like, these are just songs. Like, I think one of the amazing talents that you have as a songwriter is to write songs that feel like they've always been there and they're also brand new. And like almost in the vein of, and you know that this is my song is Wichita Lineman by Glenn Campbell. And I feel like when I finally started listening to your music, after knowing you for years and having no idea you were even a musician, I was like, I'm constantly pulling my car over and having to cry and then laugh because of your songs. And it's like the only other thing that does that to me is Wichita alignment. Like if I cannot cry and I need to cry, I know to put Wichita alignment on and that line, and I need you more than want you, and I want you for all time, I will lose it. And I'll just let go. I wanted to talk to you about some specific songs and then maybe get into a little bit more of like, I know that you listen to country music.
Yeah.
And I know that you love a good story song.
Totally. By the way, Wichita Lineman for me is that too. It's really just like the most beautiful, like achy kind of song. And it's like that line that you said, it's like, it is that line, but it's also like the way that he sings it and the music, it's too fucking much. It's just like, it's like the sound of loneliness. And I love it.
Speaking of which, your new song, Lake, on Ghosts, has a line, what good is a moon if it makes the water shine? If you're no longer mine, is it still beautiful?
Yeah.
That line, the way that you sing it, and I admonish listeners to go listen to that song. And a bunch of other songs on the new record are like that, where it's like, it's total poetry, but it's really simple. And I feel like the one thing that all of your work has in common is this desire for connection.
Yeah.
Like it's really human. Like that's one of the reasons I was having such a hard time placing your music genre wise to talk about it when I try to talk about it, because it's every song that I listen to, like everything I ever did wrong, which is kind of a list song in a way, which I love a good list song.
Totally.
And I think one of the things that is fascinating to me about country music is the way that it got so commercialized that there's a certain point in time where all the songs were just lists of like jean jackets, trucks, short shorts, Coors Light. Like it was just like people singing lists of things that they thought were stereotypes of rural living. That was like just really sad to me, because I grew up on, like Hank Williams Sr. and Hoyt Axton and Patsy Cline and people who wrote Randy Travis, George Strait, people who wrote, great songs like, He Stopped Loving Her Today, just where they have these twists and turns, you don't know what's going to happen. And I see you in that vein. And even though you don't sing in a voice that a typical country person, you sound like a New Yorker, and you're singing a lot about New York. I feel like it is, and I guess that is folk music. It's Americana, but it's like this new kind of Americana. It's not James Taylor,
right?
But it's like, I guess it's like popular music. It's like pop.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And like, I think that for me, it's so personal. It's like so personal that I'm just thinking about how to like represent whatever the thing is that I'm feeling or trying to say. So I'm certainly not thinking in terms of genre unless I really want to write a country song, which sometimes I do. But like the thing about those lists, like, it's like tight jeans, this kind of truck, like sweet tea. Those lists for me started to feel like really oppressive. Like it was this way of saying like, this is like claiming this is who we are, really started to feel like a way of saying like, this is who's not invited, or this is who's not welcome. And I think it's easy for me to listen to like Glenn Campbell or Randy Travis, or honestly just like people who sing country songs that feel like they're more from the heart. Like Waylon Payne is somebody I really love. He's like a queer descendant of country music royalty, and he writes about his days doing crystal meth and like sex and things that are so tender and raw, and it's country music. Like that is country music, but I don't know what I do, but I know that I need to do it.
Well, one of the reasons why I even mentioned list songs in the first place is because, and I started with Everything I Ever Did Wrong, which is kind of a take on a list song, which is like this list of, every time you were pissed off and yelled at somebody on the street, every time you took something, we're looking for a fight. And it's so human and connecting because it's something that like, I feel like most people, you know, we can all talk about spreading hope and joy, but in the reality of the situation, sometimes someone bumps into you and it pisses you off or cuts you off in the car and you act like an asshole because you're in a bad mood. And then you have to get underneath what that anger and sadness is about later. But it's like, it's such a human experience to be a jerk. You know, and it's yeah. Like, so that's kind of a list song about that. But then you have these other songs like Christmas Eve 2018, which is like, you're a car in the driveway idling, your exhaust and taillights shine. I didn't write it down. As my body screams danger. Who the hell are you, man? But then it goes on to like, you always, a lot of times in your songs, you identify you're this, you're that. It reminds me of, I think it was Eleanor Antin, this feminist artist who did this series of portraits that were like sculptures of her friends. And like one of them was like an exercise bike with a bunch of magazines laying next to it and a certain kind of flowers. And then the next one was like a stack of books, a wig, a pair of pantyhose. And I was like, I could tell who, and it was like Susan. And I feel like a lot of times in your songs, you'll list like who a person is. And it feels like it's so much for you. Like, you can't just be like, that person is a pair of tight jeans and a cowboy hat. You're like, you're the late night gyro I eat on my way home. You're the sidewalk that I walk on while I'm eating that gyro. I think actually in that case, it's I will be. You say I will be the late night gyro that you eat on your walk home, and I will be the sidewalk for you to walk on while you're eating that gyro. And like another list song, this is what I'm saying. I think we both have a similar obsession. And it's like, but it's this expansive listing. Like you said, you know, in country music, a lot of times the things that can make us feel left out is this list that doesn't include us. It definitely doesn't include gay men, typically. Or gay women, or women at all in some instances, because we're just wearing Daisy Dukes. And that's about the part that we're in the back of a truck wearing Daisy Dukes.
What an honor.
Or maybe we're folded up into a suitcase being rolled out of a hotel, out of a La Quinta Inn. No, but you have these lists where it's like, they're really expansive and they're really like, in trying to describe somebody, you often use like objects to describe people, like that you're a car that's idling, and I'm wondering, are there songs that taught you that? Did that happen at a certain time for you that you started doing that?
Yes. So years ago, somebody that I know was working on a poem that they referred to as a You Are poem. And I was like, what the fuck is that? And they explained it as just like, it's a way of writing about somebody, or in my case, singing about somebody. But for me, it feels like those specifics about like Ghosts, which is the record that I just put out. It's a grief record, but it is also a record about like what I love about certain people. So it's like for the song Manhattan Henge, which kind of imagines me in my afterlife, I want to become a part of New York City that I know Larry loves the best, my husband. You know, it's like I want to sort of be a resource for him, not like a ghosty, stalky spirit, but like I want to be accessible to him. And this is sort of a way of saying like, let's set this up right now where these are the ways that I could still be here for you after I'm gone.
I'm not crying. You are.
You know, and all the songs on this record are kind of that. It's like, this is what I love about you. And Christmas Eve 2018 is about my friend who unalived himself. And it's like a specific moment where I felt this was a moment that I should have really caught what was happening. This is a moment I might have been able to do something, but I didn't think about it until years after he was gone. So one of the themes is just like what haunts me, including everything I ever did wrong. That whole song is like, here's what I'm thinking about when I cannot sleep. All the ways I've been an asshole. All the ways that I hurt people.
That's a part of the reason why I always connect to your music, and probably anybody who's listening to us talk about it, if they listen to your music, will connect to it, because this is the same stuff that keeps a gazillion people up at night. And I didn't know the specifics of like, you know, that Manhattan Henge was almost like you And I love the idea that a ghost is actually just a stalker from beyond, but but that it's you still being there in these tiny moments as your husband walks through his day when you're dead. Like, what a crazy concept to come up with. Like, there is a lot of death on this record. I'll say that up front, but it's also really fucking funny. I did think that in Manhattan Hinge, it might be like a ghost of someone and you singing in the part of a ghost. I did think of that, but I also thought of just that more universally. Like I thought of it as like singing, like, I want to be a good presence in your life. I want to be the thing that when New York sucks reminds you that New York is awesome, because I'm one of those New York people who is like, came here because I had to, like you said in the beginning of us talking, it's like, this is the place that saved my life. This is a place where I found out who I was. I was a New Yorker for 20 something years. And like, I came from a small town situation I needed to get out of for different reasons. And I think that that is one thing that's so amazing about New Yorkers is so many of us are transplants who come from other places looking for freedom, you know? And it's like,
yep.
As you know, another CVS goes up next to another Chase Bank on the street, I think that it's fewer and far, but it's harder and harder to find each other. I wanted to talk about The Worst Thing, another really happy song. Thank you. I feel like The Worst Thing is really about like political depression. You know, even now that things have kind of rearranged themselves a little bit politically, it's still, I think that there was such a long period where a lot of us were just like, we're lost. Like this art capital, like late stage capitalism obviously is not working. We all understand that. You know, any kind of childlike thing that we were ever taught about, like, you know, we're the country that like welcomes people from everywhere. No, we're the people who builds walls. We're the people who elect Trump. We're the people who support white supremacy. You know, it's like really horrible. But I love that in the song, there's this just really human thing of like, what if we just give up? Like, what if we just say our country kind of sucks and we're not going to fix it? Do we really need to keep doing this? Because I think that that's something that people think that it's like, you're afraid to say it. Like, it's like this sort of like, maybe we should just all stay in bed.
Well, it's like we live in all these different systems at the same time. So in that moment, I was feeling, it was like right after the Dobbs decision happened. And just as my sister, Corey, was going through like a horrific, scary medical thing that she got through, thank goodness. It's really the feeling of feeling so pummeled by like cruelty, like on like in sort of like the national global sense, cruelty that is kind of like gleeful and designed to make us give up or designed to make us feel hopeless as we're, by the way, attacking one another, that I was just like, I don't know, for me, the idea of giving up felt like such a survival skill of just like, I could just like let myself be swept up in this feeling if I wanted, like that's an option. And yeah, it was a dark moment. And I probably wouldn't have written it if I didn't have to write a song for our songwriters group, like in a couple of days.
That's actually the next thing I wanted to talk to you about. I know that you're in a songwriters club. I'm not exactly sure what it's called.
We just call it songwriters.
Just a shorthand, just for you guys.
You coming as songwriters? Oh, we got songwriters.
I think people might be inspired to hear a songwriters club, like what it's about, so that they could maybe start their own.
So 11 years ago, or however many years ago, 13. Anyway, I was talking with my friend Amy Bazoon Artea it was an art show that my husband Larry Crone had a beautiful piece of artwork in. And, you know, we're both songwriters and we were saying, you know, I haven't been really writing anything. I haven't either. So we thought about like, what if we did something to hold one another accountable, to just like get together once a month. We write a song and that's it. We write a song a month. We get together and we each play our song. So it started off me, Amy, and Larry. And then our friend Bridget Everett joined. And then David Clement, Amy's wife, Jennifer O'Connor, and Neil Medlin. So now I think there are 7 of us. And every month we meet, we sing our song first we talk a little bit and we have snacks. How are you feeling about your song this month? I have part of a song. I think it's bad. Da-da-da-da-da. So then we go around, and as we snack, we each sing our song. Then we do what we call a hook challenge. Do you remember there was like a reality show and Jewel was one of the judges?
Oh, yes, I do. I'll act out one of the contestants later when we're not on the show. Cause yeah, I was obsessed with that show. Yeah.
So they had a hook challenge in there. Do you remember? It was like what they would call a mini challenge on RuPaul's Drag Race. So we usually just take something dumb that somebody said. Like last month, our hook was PP on my ASS. So we had to each write a hook that incorporated that.
Can you tell me any easier hook challenges that you remember? Because this is sort of like Sunday New York Times edition crossword puzzle of hook challenge. Like that's a really hard one. Like, was there an easy one that maybe other people could use for their first?
Yes, like
songwriters.
Like one of them was called Apologies in Advance.
Oh, that's
like,
great.
They're always silly.
Great.
Yeah, it's like when you're writing a song, it's sort of like you're trying to do like a painting or something. But when you try to write a hook, it's like a sketch. So a lot of times you'll just sort of throw it away in a way that feels like freeing. So in a hook that I'm doing, I'll use like a melody or weird phrasing because I'm not really thinking about it. There's an energy to it that I end up really liking. So sometimes I'll use that for a whole song, or sometimes I'll just like bookmark it for a future song.
Well, so for like Apologies in Advance, would it be acceptable in Songwriters Club if you had the choruses, apologies in advance? Like maybe you could do it like that, right?
Yeah.
As you start working on it, you realize you don't want it to be a chorus. You don't even want it to be a refrain. It's actually going to be the first line of the first verse. And then you have it. Are you allowed to do that in Songwriters?
You can do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. It's really just about, I won't write a song unless we all get together at this time. So sometimes it's like I have a million ideas that would have never become songs if I didn't have a deadline. So I'll just make one. And some of them I end up really liking, and some of them I do not. I am mortified. Yeah, there aren't any rules. There aren't any critiques. And like, I have friends of mine who have started their own songwriters groups, just like where they live, and we all do it differently. But it still becomes this really sacred thing that because we all write music and we all release it and perform it. So it's this beautiful space where we trust one another with our new ideas. But also when I went to see Jennifer O'Connor perform a couple nights ago, and I heard her doing songs that I heard when they were like 2 days old and not fully formed. And that feels like so intimate and really beautiful.
And how many records have you put out since Songwriters Club?
5.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, and you have a full-time job and a marriage and a dog.
And a marriage and a
and
dog.
a dog. Okay, there's the next hook. There's the next hook.
It's all about, and the title is Busy, Busy, Busy.
I wanted to take you back to Can't Stop Trying, your album from 2000 and, was that 22? 2000, in 2022. Mm-hmm. 2 of my favorite songs right in a row. And one of them is called Heights. That song is so genius and so top. It's basically, the setup is you or a person is like all of a sudden out of nowhere on a ledge and cannot get off. Like you are stuck or on I picture it on a building, like a skyscraper, and you're on a ledge and there's no window and there's no climbing and there's no ladder and there's no way to get off. And this person is trying to figure out not how to get down safely, because that's in the beginning of the song. The setup is there's no getting down safely. The only way down is to fall or jump.
Yeah.
And it's such an imaginative start for a song. And then the places that it goes. Can you tell me anything about like, how did you come up with a concept for that song?
Yeah, it's real easy. It's a dream that I have all the time, where it's like out of nowhere, I'm standing on like an old chair that's balanced on a plank that's rotting, that's balanced. And I'm just like, holy shit. And I can't move. So it's about like, I have it. Actually, I don't know that I've had it since I wrote that song. But in some of them, I'm like, oh, this is that dream, and I'll fly. And in other ones, so it's like different kind of, it's the scariest feeling. And because I'm afraid of heights anyway. But the other thing about that song is Taylor Swift, I got so into her pandemic records. And there's a song that she has called Tolerate It, that it's about like being in a like a loveless marriage. But in the middle of it, she's like, well, I could just leave. It's this moment of like, I could leave, like I could get out of here. And I thought about putting the feeling of that moment into this song of like, just where your mind goes, of like, I could just end my life this way in a way that feels glorious and where I'm paying attention to everything and I'm not so caught up in my own fears.
Well, for people who haven't heard the song, like part of what happens is it starts out with the narrator, the singer, being stuck and then kind of facing, I'm going to die, and being like, I'm terrified, and saying all the reasons that they can't get off the ledge. And then it's like, but wait, what if I just opened my arms up and pretended I was flying and I like, let that be the thing? And then it's like, what if I thought about the person I loved most right now? And then I embraced every moment of the last, 20 seconds of my life. What if I decided I was going to feel the wind on my body as I hit the ground? And again, it's a list song.
Yeah. Huh.
And it's also options. It's also like, I have the option to stay in bed. I have the, you know what I mean? Like, and I hear that a lot in your songs where it's like, you're going through these options, but in this really kind of like beautiful, complicated way. It's such an interesting song because it does take you on a journey, but also it brings you to a real physical location of being on a ledge. Like that's something that people are like, whoa, what would that feel like? And you immediately can like kind of in your body go there and be like, what would I do? You feel kind of that you're a meat sack, whatever you feel like. So often songs are like intellectual exercises, you know what I mean? And I think that for me, a lot of people who are really good songwriters, I can feel the cleverness of it and I can be interested in the cleverness of it. But the thing that I feel like sets you apart from just writing clever songs is that they're visceral. Like I feel inside them, even when it's something that has nothing to do with me. Like a good old country song, it takes you on a journey from one place to the other. It's not a journey that goes across the country or that goes from one job to another. It's a place that goes from the ledge to the ground. And that's a really long, long fall in your song because the narrator is contemplating the various ways that this can be done. And it's just a really structurally interesting to me. And then it goes into the next song, which is Believe Me, which is just absolutely, it's so passive aggressive, Jim. I feel like passive aggressivity is an art. Like it's just an art form. And I was like, this is so artfully passive aggressive. And it takes, and like a really good country song, like, I know I've talked to you about that song, like You Should Have Seen It in Color.
Oh my God.
Like, yeah. Jamey Johnson has a song where it's like, the tagline or the chorus is you should have seen it in color. And then each verse, there's something that changes what that chorus means. It's about a photograph, or it's about how life at this one time was joyous and life at another time was not joyous. And I feel like Believe Me turns a corner that you just never would know, because it starts out and it's this person who sounds kind of confident, but it's like really kind of serious. Like I took it really serious. Like, it's like, I can make myself matter. I can make you fall in love with me. And I think there's a thing about like, I can hold life inside me. I can bring life into the world. And so I was kind of thinking of like a mom, a mother figure, something like that. But I was also thinking about just like, as people, how sometimes we think we can control everything. Like we think we can control the world around us. Like we don't believe that somebody really loves us. We think we tricked them. And in a way, that's actually the most like obnoxious, godlike thought, even though you would think it was so like, humble, like, oh, well, they would never love me. I had to trick them. But it's also like, I'm so powerful. So powerful. I can trick people into loving me. I'm like God. And then
I'm dying to tell you what it's about.
I call myself to the rescue. Then I show up and make everything fine. But then comes this anthemic, like the music just gets very large and anthemic. And it says, stand back. Here comes my miracle. Here comes my special skill. And I was in my car at the parking lot of my office. And I was like totally relating and having this like really intimate moment. It was like, I can make myself matter. I can choose how I'm going to deal with things. I do have power over things. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm such a martyr. Like, it was like all of a sudden mom turned the corner with like the Totino's pizza rolls and was like, look what I made for you, you ungrateful brats. But it was so much deeper than that. Like there was something very like Thanksgiving guilt trip about this that I don't know, but are you going to, what is it about to you?
Okay. First of all, I love this journey, but also bless you. We have a dog. Her name is Dory. And when she was rescued with her puppies off of a beach in Puerto Rico, and when they got her, she was so barely alive. She was like clinging to life. She had everything. She'd been eating rocks, and she really wouldn't have made it for another minute if they hadn't saved her. So when we first started living with her, she would look at us and we would be like, oh, she's trying to control us with her mind. Like she's ESPing us. And she thinks that she has this power to manipulate our minds to get her what she wants. And then I was like, well, what if that's true? Like, what if she was there in Puerto Rico, like eating rocks, like nursing a kitten that she brought into her litter, and she made all of this happen. Like she made us come into her life. She found her way into an airplane into New York. And like, what if she is a superhero? And what if she has the power to really shift the world around her so that she survives? So I wanted it to feel like she was a superhero, and I wanted it to feel like powerful. So I really, it's an anthem, Kathleen. Like, she is an inspiration to me. And I wanted to just imagine her at her most heroic existence. I saw it as somebody with a total martyr complex. I'm going to listen to it that way.
Who thought that they were a superhero, and they're like, it was kind of like, you're welcome. You know what I mean? Yes. Like, it was kind of like, look at my special skill.
My special skill. I'm a chef. I'm a chauffeur. Laundry service. Because
in the song, you have, again, a list, and you're like, I can make life come out of me. I can, like all of these things that Dory can do. But of course, I read it as a human and as a cisgender woman, and I was thinking like, oh, this is about like, oh, look at me. I can bring life into the world. I can, and you said I can make a meal. Up. You're like, I can make food appear, which I get now that it's like a dog, like being like, I want food, and like giving you the eyes, and then you go and you get the food. But the way that it came across to me, because I don't know who besides you is like living on natural hallucinations about about stuff that you can be this creative. But it really did feel like the suppressed person who was like, maybe it's funny. You were talking about the Taylor Swift song of the unhappy marriage a few minutes ago in reference to a different song. And it was like, that's what I felt like. I felt like it was like this unhappy woman in a suppressed marriage, and like a heterosexual marriage, straight marriage that she didn't want to be in, who was like, had to push her ambitions down. And then she's like, sort of like having a fried green tomatoes moment, and she's like, but wait, I'm not nothing. I can make life appear. I can make food exist. I can bring in the Totino's pizza rolls just at the right time. You know what I mean? And then she's like, I'm creating the horrible problem, and then watch me solve it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I felt like it was a masterpiece about being passive aggressive. So kudos to you.
What a dick. If I had written that song that way, what a dick.
I don't think so, because I was like, oh, he can relate. I just felt like you related to that person, that character.
Well,
I mean, not.
You know what? Maybe that's my unconscious coming out. Do you remember years ago you were like, hey, you know how like a lot of your songs are about how you think that you love me, but you really wouldn't if you knew who I was? And I was like, what? And then I listened to all of them and I was like, oh, right. Yes, this one too. Yes, that one also. So you just might be right about this one.
Going back to Ghosts, I'm very curious about Brooklyn.
Ooh, yeah. That's one. The other one is Manhattan Henge was a reaction to a poem by Esther Matthew called Absence. And Brooklyn was a response to reading Hugh Ryan's book When Brooklyn Was Queer. So I was imagining where I would be in like 19th century Brooklyn. And I pretty quickly was like, oh, I probably would have been in the closet and it really started me thinking about the experience of being in the closet, which is you're sort of watching people with lives and you're living what seems like a life, but there's this like profound longing and also this supercharged eroticism around just like watching people who feel like they can embody themselves. So a lot of that song is just me remembering that feeling, but I also think a lot about being in the closet and how it's like, it's not a choice that anybody makes. We do it for our own survival. And there is a point. It's like, it's so hard to come out. It just is. But if you don't, or if you can't, at some point, that's gonna read creepy. So I think that I sort of allowed myself to lean into, this is what happens. Like, this is what happens when you take all of your sexual energy and you just tamp it down. You become very weird and you begin to watch people in a way that is gross.
Yeah, I mean, there's a part in the song where you're watching someone who I assume is a guy who has kind of like beautiful hair, and you're like, you know, seeing this person on the street, maybe seeing them at the club, imagining waking up next to them. But it's also very sad because you're like, it's like you're trying to be friends with them, and you're like, hi, I live in Brooklyn too. I've seen you around. I think there's a total economy of language in your songs that is really beautiful, that even though you can have these very intense descriptions of people, you also have this total economy of language where it's like, all you have to do is say, oh, you live in Brooklyn? I do too. And like, I could see the character being like, oh, hi, excuse me. I've seen you around. Like I could see the whole kind of Larry David backstory of the person like trying to approach them and having it go really weird. And all you had to do was say, you live in Brooklyn. I do too. Compliments all around, chef's kiss, blah, blah, blah. We should wrap up because we're at the end of our hour.
Yes.
I wish we could do this every week. So maybe Talkhouse should give me a show where I just talk to you all the time. Oh, and the other thing we have to talk about is that you ripped me off because my band Bikini Kill has a song called Carnival and you have a song called Carnival.
I know. I love that song. I've been listening to it so
obviously.
much. And I've been like, you get 35%.
Our carnival is so superficial. It's like, I want to go to the carnival and get a Motley Crue mirror, and I want to ride the rides and smoke pot and suck dick. And yours is like forgiving a parent for abusing a child and like letting the parent, hoping that wherever they go after they die, they walk into a carnival that's free all the time, that has every single thing that they want in it. I mean, I just have to say, A, you're smarter than me, and B, you're a better songwriter.
No. Here, I object, Your Honor. Here's what I want to say about Carnival specifically and your songwriting and you is like, when I listen to that song and so many of your songs, I hear the we. Like, this is the world that us kids know. Like, it feels so loving and also so real about what it feels like. But when I listen to your songs, I always hear the we in that. You're bringing in people in a way that to me feels like you're not trying to change any of the details about what it's like, but it also feels loving and welcoming. And that's what I feel when I listen to your music. I feel lucky. No.
You're so sweet.
Oh, come on.
Oh my God. The lyrics to your song, though, Carnival, people check it out. It's pretty intense.
That's another one we'll talk about after this.
Well, Jim Andralis, thank you so much for allowing me to talk to you about songwriting today. I am really one of your number one fans. And I just hope that the whole entire world gets to hear your amazing music, because I do think you're just one of the most brilliant songwriters I've ever encountered.
And I will say this to you. You are an artist and a person that I treasure. And thank you for doing this on one of your very few days off on a very gorgeous tour that I will see you in Brooklyn.
I will see you in Brooklyn. So signing off from Boise, Idaho at the Hampton Inn. It's Kathleen Hanna.
Too glamorous. Stop bragging.
It actually is. I mean, it is.
It's
really,
nice.
I have like a microwave. So
I love you.
I love you too.
Thanks for listening to the Talkhouse Podcast, and thanks to Kathleen Hanna and Jim Andralis for chatting. If you liked what you heard, please follow Talkhouse on your favorite podcasting platform and check out all the great stuff at talkhouse.com. This episode was produced by Myron Kaplan, and the Talkhouse theme is composed and performed by The Range. See you next time.